got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. You talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, our resident min clicker, Jesse Sylvia. What's poppin', Jesse? How you feeling today?
How we doing? Nice shades, bro.
Well, thank you.
Sun's out, guns out for you.
Light's just been fucking me up recently, so
Conrad,
I'm over it.
Wait, are you wearing the? Wow.
Honestly,
lights are killing me.
I'm a big fan of Summer Conrad. Like, this is a look.
Yeah.
He looks ready.
I'm ready for war.
He looks like he's a part of Team Hogan.
Oh yeah, bro.
Like Hollywood Conrad, you know? I mean, like, like they had to fill a quota. Like, yeah, go get the small guy with the funny smile.
You want to know something? I couldn't even do one of Hulk Hogan. I don't even know any of his slogans outside of "Oh yeah."
Oh yeah, brother. No, look, he's not the fucking Kool-Aid man. He's not the oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's oh yeah, brother.
Get that the brother part.
The brother is very important.
I didn't watch any wrestling then, really, at all. I think
As a kid, you didn't watch any?
not until probably 4th, 5th grade.
You don't
I know I did then because we used to fucking host WWE matches in my living room where we had a thing that you can literally jump off. It was like 10 feet in the sky.
10 feet in
10
the
feet
sky.
in the sky? Whatever. It was just like
I
this.
call bullshit.
Why?
Cause
I
that's reckless.
call it the ceiling.
Your ceiling has got to be like 10 feet high just alone, right?
I had a basketball court in my house too.
Okay, let's
go.
Stop.
This is what we did. We used to jump
In
off.
terms of Landon, stop the cap.
What?
You ain't got no fucking 20-foot vault ceilings wherever you're at with a 10-foot basketball hoop.
I can pull it up right now.
All right,
I'm going to pull up the...
Let's go to Zillow.
Give me a second.
You've never heard Hulk Hogan's most famous phrase, eat your prayers and say your vitamins?
No.
I've never heard that either.
He says, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. I was just, dyslexic in my head.
Oh, I thought you were trying to make a joke.
I was, because I almost said it that way incorrectly immediately.
So then you
And then I
personally...
mulled it over, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's never heard the phrase, so I figured it would work.
Creative license.
Sometimes you miss, man. I'm just out here taking fucking shots.
I know.
I'll tell you who doesn't miss, though, is my man Giraf Ganger. He is my spirit animal. No one else should create content. It should just be him. Clearly, Jared Jaffe is not watching Giraf Ganger. Otherwise, he wouldn't be complaining about bad content. You got to play this from the beginning with sound.
You got it, boss.
We need the whole experience of this fucking lunatic locked up in a basement playing online.
He did this to himself. He's not locked there. He chose to lock himself.
Yeah, like he's rich now, and this is the life he's chosen, and it's okay.
I've been told
it.
that area where he streams, like outside of that, he owns like a little farm and has a ton of different animals and stuff.
And they sound like that.
Oh, let's go.
Pretty intense, man. My God.
Oh man, this is me after my morning
Wait,
coffee.
Can't you get a banned on Twitch for stuff like this?
I think he's on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Same.
Okay, boys, that was it.
Okay, boys. Good morning, boys.
That was you after winning Heads Up like 3 years ago.
What?
Online.
Oh. Wait,
Yeah.
what did I win heads up?
I don't know. He did something like this.
Oh, when I beat
Matt Perry.
for
like 100.
150K. Oh, yeah, that one was sweet. I was running around the house, shirt off, dollars on my nipples.
These were the COVID heads up battles?
These were the COVID days. We were not in our right frame of mind. COVID was a dark, dark time.
We had a fucking
We got
blast.
rich,
Yeah, he just like stayed in permanent COVID land.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. It was tough to escape, to be honest.
Now he's in the cave doing that.
What did you do during COVID, Jesse?
Pretty much the same thing I do
Now?
not during COVID.
Learning how to play Limit Hold'em?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just you and the wifey min-betting one another?
What did I do? I did a lot of. We road tripped home that summer.
Time out. Don't you bring Ashley into his fucking shenanigans? Don't you do that to her?
I mean, look.
Yeah. Okay. Two things. One, he's absolutely right. And two, I love you, baby. And two, Conrad just reminded me I started a stable during COVID.
Oh yeah.
Which I ended after a while. We had a great run.
Fun times.
Yeah. We're honestly some really good times. For
The
sure.
real treasure was the friends you made along the way.
All right.
One of my favorite moments of the whole thing is I'm teaching a class for like 30 people. I have my video on so they can see me, and everyone else has their videos off and they're muted. And Conrad hits a button so that his video comes on by mistake, and he is rollerblading down the street.
Hold on. Don't say it. Okay, cool.
Correct. This is a typical Friday afternoon for Conrad.
On brand.
He was locked in.
What did you learn in your experience running a stable, Jesse?
I learned a lot of things. I learned the value of scaling too quickly, or the value of not scaling too quickly, I should say. Because I think that we're good at selecting, we're generally good at selecting people who worked hard and, were really motivated to get better and do well at poker and all that stuff. But I just stress myself out trying to keep on top of 30 people and making sure that they're,
Well, you got to create, you actually have to create framework there. You can't be everything. You're the overseer, you need middle management.
Yeah.
So maybe I scaled the players too quickly.
Correct.
And not the
Middle management wanted
point.
out very quickly. Ashley was done.
Oh my God, Ashley had about 8 suggestions that I ignored every single one of, and all of them were 100% correct. Like if I had done any of those things would have went a lot better. So.
Which in order of 1 through 8, which one of them was promote Conrad to stable leader?
That was like the first 4 weeks. She was like, "This guy means business.
Yeah,
he should." Yeah. I didn't listen.
Could have been a rollerblading adventure for everyone. Just in like a line, like a bird. You know how birds like fly in the
V formation.
Soon after, Jamie went followed right along. She started rollerblading during meetings too.
I'm sure you guys absorbed a lot of really deep poker knowledge during those rollerblading sessions.
We were very in tune while rollerblading.
I don't doubt it.
Honestly, I kind of get it because I have pretty bad ADD, and if I'm doing something that gives me some kind of like physical stimulation, whether it's just like playing Tetris on my phone or something like that, I find that I do a better job of listening and not zoning out.
So I'm kind of curious because you're underselling how difficult it is to keep your attention.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat interested.
Berkey, I am always underselling everything when it comes
fair.
to me.
That is fair. You good-looking bastard. How do you specifically approach study as somebody who has the attention span of a gnat?
I definitely think that finding ways that are more fun for you is very important. So, for instance, I really like watching FTs. There's just like an insane amount of information on the internet via like final tables of scoops and W coops and all that stuff, and I really like watching those. And then when I'm watching those, I get excited to break down a hand. So it doesn't feel like work as much. Like if you're just going through the solver and running node locks and stuff like that, it gets really tedious very quickly. But when it's in the context of a story that maybe is a final table, it becomes a lot more interesting. So like that is fun. I like trainers. Like I like when you can play against the machine a little bit. I think that holds my attention. But there are certain things that certain ways of learning at poker that I probably would be really beneficial to me that I probably will just out for. So I can't really.
Right. So like you're almost like trying to create layers where it's multiple things happening at once. Like the visual stimulation of the final table being played out while self-selecting hands that you find to be interesting enough to look up, while looking up those hands, coming to some sort of realization, and then returning back to the final table itself. Like you're just in action every step of the way. So like watching a training video, for instance, or like having a discussion amongst your peers, probably not going to keep you quite as engaged.
Yeah, training videos were always so tough for me. I would watch like 20 minutes and realize I haven't paid attention the last 18, and then rewind and then rinse and repeat. And it's like, I think rather than trying to brute force my way through it, just embracing that and being like, okay, then how do we, because there's a lot of ways to learn, obviously, right? And like embracing that and being like, okay, what are the best ways for me to learn, I think was important.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm somewhat similar. I think that the main difference is I might have a little bit more of specifically audio. I might have more of an attention span. Mm-hmm. So like I could listen to a training video and go through that same layered process where it's like they spout out a concept and they're obviously going to expound upon that for some period of time. While they're going through the explanation, I can be like creating my own framework around it, studying or looking up a spot to try to create an example, you know, like modeling and stuff like that. I ask because I think that one of the biggest or one of the trickiest things that I found running a training site is trying to find a sweet spot for everybody. It's near impossible. And it's especially tough for kinesthetic learners who like want to be literally in action. You know what I mean? Like, well, what's the best way to learn? Oh, I learn by playing. It's like, well, you're playing. How much you're actually learning is debatable because there's nobody correcting you. But I think trainers are like the perfect example of kind of like hitting that middle ground. Yeah,
I feel like it's funny because I always put you in this category, and I could be wrong about it. But I feel like traditionally, especially back in the day before we had, solvers were just right at our fingertips. I always put you, Mercier, a few guys into the camp of they learned via playing for the most part, and thinking about it. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could be wrong about you. Maybe you were doing a lot.
No, I'm very much trial by fire. Like go out there and just like test the extremes, and then come back and like mull it over for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. See what works, see what doesn't. Like, but I think like in order to be that type of person, you have to have some sort of sense for the like model that you're stress testing already. So you have to internalize something about the game dynamics, where it's just like, okay, well, here are where the boundaries lie, and I've kind of internalized that just simply through like sheer force or whatever. Now let's see what happens if we cross those boundaries. How detrimental can it be? And you miss a lot of the nuance, right? Like, it was difficult as like a quote unquote field player to actually be able to see things broken down at such a minute level when it came to measuring EV, right? Like when you look at bluff catchers and it's like, oh, well, this one's like kind of on the cusp, but it's a pure call because it's making like, 1/10 of pot share. So you can just like never fold it in theory. And like from a technical standpoint, it's like, yeah, that's true. But you forget like how sensitive the model is. And people who learn like very hands-on, they understand that sensitivity, right? So like it's easy to just ignore the things that are like right on the cusp, because the outliers just become always in nevers to people who are like very experiential, where it's just like, oh, well, this guy never bluffs enough, so I don't care about these things that are on the bottom of the boundary, where it's like in a perfect world they're making money, but against Joe Schmo they're just not. And the issue with that is when your assumptions become wrong, you get fucked bad. So like as the game moves, if you don't go back and revisit these things that you've already cemented into your mind as being like correct or incorrect, you become like Alan Berry. I don't know why I reached to him. I mean, honestly, it's been a long time since I took a shot at him, I think. Maybe that's why. But I do recall like just at one point we were at LAPC and there was a hand played where I think it was like somebody squeezed ace-9 off in our group or something like that. And he was just so adamant that this was just a never type of thing. And it was like at that moment I realized like, oh man, your rigidity is just going to fuck you. Like you're going to be a cook in Hoboken in no time.
There are a lot of people who are very hard-headed about, like you'll tell them a hand, they'll just be like, it goes this way. This is how you play it. It's just clearly this. And I admire their confidence, but I just wonder how you can do it without being flexible to potentially being wrong. I think I'm like too flexible, where sometimes I take bad advice or I incorporate bad advice a little more than I should.
You can see more perspectives. It's like, oh, I know where you're coming from, and like you kind of think they have a point, but bro is on to nothing.
If they say it confidently enough, I give it some weight, even if it's a little bit of weight, and maybe that should have taken with negative weight.
Yeah, that's what makes poker hard, man. You can have all the info and then do something because you think, well, it is good, but then like the philosophical, is it actually good? Two different questions.
Yeah.
Landon's been a very fun process to watch play out because
there's a lot going on here. I don't even know what's going on.
Much like any young student of the game, he goes through these peaks and valleys of hubris and humbling, and it's like when he's really been in the lab and studying a specific thing or whatever the case may be, it's just the rigidity of like what is correct and what is not is just it's just unable to be budged. So he will just be like so hard up on, no, this is only correct. And like everything is like blunder. And then like on the way down, as some random grandpa stuffs the old I've had enough ace-9 offsuit in his face, he starts to like loosen up a little bit. And it's like, wow, maybe this isn't as easily solvable as I thought it would be. And then you arrive all the way at the bottom where you just start going the whole other way, where it's just like the sims are all a fucking lie. Like they're just all a lie. Everything I've been studying for years, it's all just a complete and utter lie, because everything I'm looking at is if we're operating in some sort of like perfect world, and I'm worried about mixing frequencies, and like this asshole is just like looking at queen jack suited as a really pretty hand and deciding to commit all of his chips. So it's interesting when you lack the decades of experience of like actually absorbing other people at the table in a certain way, where you just get to see them just be human, right? Because that's the thing the solver never takes into consideration, and there's really no way to program it into your parameters, right? Like you can always adjust things, and it's like, well, I know he does too much of this and too much of that. That's all well and good, but like what you just never get to see whenever you're going through hours upon hours upon hours of seeing what baseline theory looks like is the spaz factor, or the fatigue, or just the sheer and utter lack of understanding, when people are just like non-sizing all the time because they literally have no clue, and half pot means something very different than full pot. Mm-hmm. And we can kind of like through experience be able to almost like read it like a story, where it's like, oh, okay, like I know how to interpret that now. And that experience, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about it with Schulman. Like, it's worth its weight in gold in a lot of ways. And that's not to say that the young up and coming kids aren't just like fucking insanely ahead of the curve. Like, they're all so good. I mean, there are just so many guys that are like playing high rollers that are under the age of 30, where it's just like, how the fuck did you get so good at this game?
Very sharp.
Yeah.
Look at Mario.
Right.
Mossback?
Yeah. When did he start playing? It wasn't very long.
3 years ago?
5 years ago?
Maybe? Yeah.
Is Mario the soccer player?
Yeah.
He nearly won the last $1 million tournament they had, and I think he's Fedor's student.
Yeah.
He and Fedor are close.
There's a fun. I really enjoy the tennis player / soccer player moving into poker and doing really well.
Right.
Those are kind of like the sports I played more as a kid, so there's like a little place in my heart for that.
Yeah.
But it just any athlete moving to poker makes a lot of sense to me. Like, you just have this super hyper competitive drive, and you have no way after you take an injury or something to
fulfill that.
There's a lot of there's a lot of like overlap too, in the sense that all sports are very technical in nature as well, but that's not necessarily who always excels. You can look at it, a game like basketball or football or baseball or whatever, and some of the most technically sound human beings will overachieve compared to their natural athleticism. Mm-hmm. But the natural athletes also just like fucking dominate. Mm-hmm. A guy like Randy Moss doesn't have to run perfect routes. He's just going to be an absolute freak and just needs to find a way to get separation. And I think poker kind of lends itself to being the same. Like, if you're the type of person who's paying very close attention to the human aspect of the game and you have your finger on the pulse, you definitely are capable of doing like some wildly out of the box shit in order to capitalize on that. But the problem with that whole lane is when you buy so deeply into your own hype that you stop playing technically sound. Like we saw a hand, and I don't know that this is what happened, but just like watching from afar as a viewer, we saw a hand deep in this 25K where Chance 4 or 5 bet ripped King 10 off.
Yeah, he opened cutoff, Stam 3-bet small blind, he jammed 40 bigs with King 10 off.
Right. And it's like, he's going off of a read there. And I don't know how deep the read is in that moment, as opposed to just profiling and saying like, oh, well, Stam's an old guy who just like 3-bet folds too much.
Stam's an old guy that fucks.
I love Stam.
He was great. I became such a big fan.
He's the best.
The best, yeah.
What did Stam have, by the way?
Jacks.
Okay. I was gonna say he could have a read on Stam, but they're just deep in the tournament, and Stam has like closer to the bottom of his calling off range after he 3-bets, and he's just like nervous,
Yeah, right. Like Jacks don't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah,
But-
I was thinking he'd have like ace queen suited or ace king off or something where he's like not particularly thrilled to play an all in for his tournament, even though it's perfect.
Yeah, I will say this: he's far more studied than a 72-year-old entrepreneur from the tech space should ever be. I met him in the Bahamas 2 PCAs ago. Well, I guess 1, since there was no PCA last year.
Right.
And we
2
played
years, 1 PCA.
We played like a wild hand where I was guilty of the same thing. Like he was just an old guy at my table that I profiled that way.
Old bro.
And he like went off in a spot where I had queens and I made like a crying call down in a 4-bet pot. Just like, how am I knocking at showing aces or kings in this spot? It was like, dry 9-high board or something like that.
Yeah, the ace 4 suited or something.
No, he had 10s.
Oh.
He was just like merging on me. And then I saw
just
him
worse value, and you're like, I hate myself.
Yeah, I like absolutely. I cry called so bad, like I nit rolled him so bad on the end, and I actually might have like rivered a full house or something like that, which made my life easy. I don't remember, but I saw him in the elevator later, and he was kind of telling me his backstory, like how he was a founder and an entrepreneur in the tech space, and like he builds all these companies and an angel investor. He at the time was actually working on the back end of 4Poker for Bryn. So he was like one of the original developers from there, which I think he shortly thereafter like left that project.
Didn't the 100x?
It did not.
It was up to you though.
No, literally was. No.
Bryn messaged me like not that long ago saying like, bro, I think it's time for you to get on 4Poker.
Get in the mix.
To get on it?
Yeah, it's like,
is it operating?
buddy, no, it's like to invest or to play on it. It's like, man,
both.
honestly, like all things considered, like kudos to you for still out there grinding the marketing campaign. Like, I'm not going to be playing on this fucking site.
You could though. It's up to you.
But yeah, he said he watches the pod and that like, he's an avid studier. And I think that's happening more and more. Like the people that we just bucket to being recreationals that don't care and don't try, care and try.
Yeah.
A lot harder than like you would ever expect.
It kind of makes sense when you are someone that's highly competitive to want to find the answers.
Yeah.
Like it fills that void where other hobbies won't.
Right.
Especially like when you are at that age, I imagine.
It's really fun watching the evolution of a or like lack of more eloquent phrasing, a rich guy who made it himself in a different industry, because this is a person who is very intelligent, and they just, if they like poker, they're just not going to stay bad for very long.
Yeah.
I remember I was playing, this is like 2012, I was playing 1025 at the Win, and this guy shows up. He's Turkish, and he started and owns a company that like basically just leases out huge container ships. Like, okay. He said his yearly diesel cost is like $250 million for all the ships or whatever.
Jesus.
And so maybe he owns them. I don't. Anyways, it was like in a broken English conversation. He played for 3 days with us. Day one, it was clear he had never played poker before. Like he, a nit opened and he like min 3-bet and the nit like 4-bet and then went like bet jam and on like an ace high board with nothing on it, and he had like king 6 high. And just like showed his hand to his neighbor, like, how did I miss, on the river, and mucked it.
Yeah.
And by day 3, I legitimately think, I mean, mostly because people are trying to exploit him and it wasn't working very well, but I think he was winning versus some of the regs in that game.
That's wild.
Like, he was just a smart guy.
I thought you were going to say, and this is Orpin. Because now he just like studies really hard, wins everything, plays high rollers. And
I think that's really what it distills back to. Like we were talking about the athletes transferring over, and it's the competitiveness that really draws them in. Mm-hmm. And they can kind of fall a lot more down that feel rabbit hole. because they do have great instincts, right? And
I made it over here, so I can make it here.
well, for a lot of them, like they were probably naturally talented and didn't have to worry that deeply about the mechanics. So it's like, okay, somebody just give me the broad strokes of the mechanics, and I'll feel my way through the actual talent side of things. For guys like Stam, who come from a very technical background, it's all about everything is modeled, right? Yeah. So like something like game theory really lends itself to that sort of mind, because it's a sandbox to him. Like he's accustomed to these models. It allows for a ton of flexibility because of the dependency in the variables. It's like, oh, well, if I just tweak this one little thing over here, let's see what happens to the final output. Wow, that's astronomical. That means that, you know, within the model, this variable has a high degree of importance because just a tiny little tweak resulted in a very different output. And you start to pull out principles that way. It's like, oh, okay, well, this thing then is a major principle to game theory. Therefore, I should care about it when I'm creating my strategy in game. And the next thing you know, you're 5 years down the line, this fucking guy's at a final table of a 25K high roller.
Yeah, it's nuts. Just like in the cool way when you can see somebody's hands, and like if you do a lot of work at final tables, you can see some hands are like bottom opens for people that study. Like, oh, like your low jack, you can probably mix king 9 suited open. Or if you're hijack, like this is the bottom, you don't go king 8. And like he made a lot of these plays where it's like, oh, these are bottom opens, and it's be like, okay, you've looked at stuff. Like you have to have looked at stuff, you know? And like he found a min raise with ace jack. Big blind kind of went nuts and 3-bet the 4-3 off because he thought he was going to fold too much. And then he piled it because he has an ace and a jack.
Right.
Like, that was a fun hand.
Yeah, it's just like you
I was
just
so happy he found it. He was like holding his cards like he was going to muck. And then he just reaches for chips. I'm like, yes, let's fucking go.
He's like,
go,
wait a minute.
dude.
It doesn't matter if I get first or sixth. I'm all in.
Yeah, let's fucking go.
By the way, did you guys see the sixes call off?
Yeah.
Did you? Did anyone like run it? Or
I didn't run it yet, but it feels close.
His whole rail said it was a mistake, so I'm gonna trust them.
Yeah, I kind of went with that as well. My instinct was it's like 7s or 8s, probably 7s or slightly
like 8's probably surely in.
The funny thing is like literally the very next hand was it Quee that was in the big blind?
Lee.
Or Lee?
Yeah, Lee. Yeah. His first name's Quee something.
Okay, yeah. He picks up 6s. And I thought it was a very clear slam dunk call.
Yeah.
He was shorter.
Yeah. And it was versus a cutoff jam.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas Sean's like 8-handed, under the gun. He's the shortest stack, but there's some similar stacks. I don't think he's supposed to shove like pocket 2s, pocket 3s.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, so now you're just not dominating that much. And I think you just need to be dominating a few things in these situations.
Probably dominates some suited ace, but like,
Landon would know better than me. I don't know how much wheel ace is jamming UTG
8. Like how much was it for? Do you remember?
10,
it was like 8.5, I think. Yeah,
I mean, ace short. 4 is probably in, right? Ace 5 is probably in.
Yeah, big blind Nancy might change it too.
Like I would probably pay 7s for sure. 6s, like I can see how someone can call in game. Like I was talking with Nick about this after. It's just so hard to get every spot right.
Yeah.
And some are just worth so much more.
You said this with Schulman, by the way.
Yeah.
It's funny because he got nearly every spot right.
Right, and like when you look at someone that like wants to play every spot perfect because they're all one-offs, and then like he looks back and there was a hand that he played against Noel where he jammed ace 10 off as covering blind versus blind when he limped, and he was like, oh yeah, in game after I did this felt like a mistake.
Yeah,
and
like he wanted to induce there.
He wanted to induce, but went for jam, and it's just like it sucks, but it's an inaccuracy, and like the queen spot is the more annoying one as to like, is this correct in theory, or do I just have to like call and like pray that we don't play this big pot?
Right.
I think the ace 10 was maybe still better to small raise because Noel's not going to have that many limp calls. I think I could be wrong about that, but I think it's better than he thinks because, man, the way Noel was playing, I don't think he's finding those limp jams with his 4 offsuit. Yeah,
I agree. Like he was like kind of cruising for second place.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was just going to get light where it's like, okay, well, in theory, ace 4 off or whatever is like supposed to limp jam here, but like I'm just not going to. And I think we saw that 3-handed or 4-handed whenever he was second in chips and folded him in the small blind. It was very clear that everybody was just trying to outweight Stam, who had like 3 blinds. He had ace 8 off and he just like smiled and goes, I don't know what to do, and just folds.
Yeah.
Which, you know, technically it's probably just a jam, but, you know.
It's hard to know. I mean, like, it's hard to equate, like, real life situation and, like, theory answers plus money dollars. Where it's like, yeah, maybe this is correct, and it's winning, like, a little bit. But now if I actually get called here, I get 4th for not as much as I could when I ladder and get 3rd for, like, 760.
Yeah.
It's like there maybe is a difference between strategy and dollars.
I gotta tell
Sometimes-
you, I accept the reality of what 2024 is and how much poker's matured and the game that we've become. But my God, do I yearn for the days of the early 2000s. Chu put a tweet out yesterday, and it's a meme of Larry David like talking to a bunch of kids, and he goes, "Yeah, so we used to learn poker from watching videos of guys playing pure feel, no solvers, and one time a guy accidentally left his stream running and got caught cranking his hog." Big shout out to Big Dog Pocket Fives out there.
This is before my time. I
Way
imagine.
before your time, but God, was it more interesting, man. Like, what a different world. This is when Twitch was like very first starting, so probably like 2015-ish, 2016 maybe. Poor guy left his webcam on. It was naughty shit.
Yeah,
But
it was not the type of porn that you want to get
No,
caught watching.
no, yeah. I mean, it was rough.
It was the wrong genre, bro.
Oh man, crazier
GG,
times,
big
crazier
dog.
times. But like, yeah, now like moving forward,
Jesse's not happy.
Wasn't great.
it was not good.
Doesn't look good, cuz.
Bad luck, cuz. Bad luck. Moving forward into the Schulman final table, it was, to me, it was like a masterclass to watch. Obviously, we'll talk first and foremost about the Queens versus Ace King spot, which I think we have a clip, and we could just probably let this one play out before we give too much analysis here. But effectively, to set this up, he came in basically two of 8 at this point, I guess. And Noel had him covered by like a half a blind or something like that.
I think Nick was strip leading and then like lost a pot, small pot, then Noel won some pots, and then they got to this point.
Yeah. So
Noel had just doubled too.
yeah, he had just doubled through Deeb, I think.
Yeah,
Deeb kind of like rocketed that one off.
that was. I'd love to talk about that hand. That was an interesting one.
I didn't get to watch it too closely. It was blind versus
It
blind,
was blind, raise, call, flop goes check,
and Deeb had like
queen 4 off.
queen 4 off.
It was
right.
it was King 8-6 rainbow.
Like turn 3, river king.
Yeah, something
And then
like
he just
that.
like
It was very
rocketed,
blank.
turn, jammed river.
Yeah,
And Noel's like, I have 3 kings.
sure.
All
Call.
right. And then he's like saw pretty quickly he had a queen and a 4.
Respect to the Waffle Crush. She went after it.
It's a it's a tricky spot because like if he folds every 8 and 6, thinking that John's under bluffing in a spot like that, it's probably winning. But you just have a lot of kings when you check back.
Right. Well, especially under ICM pressure like that.
Yeah.
When you're covered.
And maybe Sean
some
thought
8s and
he didn't
6s
have enough
bet.
kings. Like maybe
Well,
he thought,
obviously.
he checked back. He doesn't have one.
Yeah.
But if someone's like doesn't want to play big pot, we'll check back king X.
Yeah. Probably just want to have a different hand, I would imagine.
Probably.
Something that blocks would be nice.
I
But
would.
yeah, anyway,
I would imagine that to be the case.
what this led to was a massive confrontation between Nick and Noel. So they were both 50 blinds effective, 1 and 2 in chips. Noel had him covered by 300K, which was 1.5 big blinds. Folds to him in the small blind. He has ace king off. He goes for the raise, which is pretty standard. And he went big, 3.5x. I imagine at these depths, with ICM pressure and everything else, this is just probably good. Schulman then 3 bets, very polarizing sizing. I think he went to 2.5 million.
Like 12.5 bigs.
Yeah, and about a quarter of their stacks, which then resulted in Noel responding through a jam. I don't really think he can do anything else at that point. It seems pretty tough to just like peel 25% of your stack with ace king off.
There are. If he had ace king suited, I would feel. I mean, this sizing's tough, but I would feel somewhat confident that you can click it.
Mm-hmm.
The way it works is like Schulman ends up being very polar with his 3-betting range, and so like clicking it gets it done versus the bluffs anyways.
Yeah.
But that's like an on paper thing that doesn't actually take place in the real world that often.
Yeah.
And I think with the offsuited combo, just like filing feels so easy. Yeah.
Probably just like don't really have a lot of choice. This one's gonna run out clean, and man, I have to tell you, this hand is so pivotal to how the final table plays out.
Yeah.
Nick ends up having 100 blinds afterwards. Noel has, like I mentioned, 1.5 big blinds. He has like 300K. Somehow manages to just like Scarfaggio his way through this, and he just hangs and hangs and hangs. Doubles and doubles and doubles. and everybody else is so short with Nick being able to apply so much ICM pressure that he actually finds himself second in chips still with 8 left. So nobody had busted, and Noel had climbed himself all the way back to second in chips with only like 5.5 million or something like that.
Yeah, he got to 7 million like at peak. At peak like spin, and then got to like 7 million, 30 bigs. Just river to 9 with Jack 9 against Ace against Ace 9. Sorry, river to Jack against, and then doubled again, and then got kings. Nick piled Queen 10 suited on him, and then he called and doubled, and then he got the second, and everyone else still had the same kind of chips because they were waiting for someone to lose, but then he didn't lose.
That actually
he kept winning.
That might be an argument for the one potential mistake that Nick. I'm not sure if Queen 10 suited wants to pile there, especially with how Noel is playing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it makes sense though. I think it would jam just because like suited paint does really well. He can't really call that often. Blocks the good stuff, and then if he has it, he has it kind of thing. But I would want to look into it. I would just have to. I would have to run it. But
I'd feel a lot better about like Jack 10 or 9-10 suited. I think. But
I think it would go the other way. Like I think Jack 10. I think suited paint's just going to be in there pure. 10-9 suited is probably going to call because it's kind of too good. Like too good to fold, but too bad to jam. Like not having like enough high cards, but who knows?
It wasn't for that many blinds though, was it?
Yeah, I think
it was like 16.
But situationally, where everyone else
was
is.
it only 16?
I think so.
If it is, I take it back. Then
I could be wrong
or something.
Maybe it was closer to 20.
I think it was like 17 or less. Like
I
17 or less
too.
for sure.
I thought so as well.
It feels like maybe you can just 4.5x this combo a good bit.
To call off or to fold?
To fold.
Interesting.
You use some pretty wild stuff in ICM environments.
I know you get to do a lot of flatting too to fuck with people. Like you're just not going to face much heat behind.
Well, yeah,
and that did start to happen later. Noel opened Ace Jack off, I think, and Nick flatted the button with.
He flatted Queen 9 suited, which I think is correct.
Yeah,
you want to use suited paint, and then you use a little bit under because, like a lot of the edge that Nick can also have from being chip leader is playing spots post flop that people kind of forget, where it's like, oh, he can't call versus I'm going to make him play out streets to realize equity.
Well, especially whenever the big blind is just like forced to fold, right? Like the main component behind not wanting to like have flat ranges, especially at final tables like this, is getting squeezed. But in situations where it's like that squeeze just can't come through because everybody left to act wants this confrontation to take place, they just like willfully get out of the way.
Yeah, they fold so he gets to flat more on button.
Right.
Like you get to flat very, very wide.
Yeah, exactly. Which means you just kind of get the fuck with the guy who's second in chips to your right.
Yeah, it's a good spot.
And I'm not even suggesting that that's what he should have done with Queen 10 suited. I truly don't know.
Yeah, I would imagine Queen 10 suited jams, and then the bluffs are going to be like Ace X offsuit because you're going to jam Ace suited, Ace wheel pre.
Right.
Like Ace suited pre because you have an ace, hard for him to call. And if you do get called, you have equity. And then you want to use Ace X off as bluffs because you block aces and you don't want to jam this hand for too many chips.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe some weak King X suited gets in there as well.
Yeah, it might even jam, right? Because like, how can this guy call when there's 7 other people at the table, right? So it might be like Ace wheel, King wheel, start using a Queen to bluff because that everything else is used as a jam, and then you use Ace X offsuit. And, just get to ravage them.
King 7 suited.
Probably might just pile.
Yeah.
Like, like, what's he gonna do? Call? It's like no. And even if he does, you're still chip leading with a ton. And he's in more pressure, and he just has to wait even longer because there's 7 people that have 15 bigs or less.
Yeah. I mean, from that point on, I really did think that, like, as somebody who doesn't study ICM very deeply, I thought this final table was a bit of a masterclass because there were so many fascinating spots to me that were on the cusp. Like, obviously, Nick gets to do what Nick does. He's just ravaging, right? So, like, he gets to play a ton of all-ins, even with, like, 7 and 8 left. Like, he's just jamming hijack. He's jamming cutoff because the stacks left to act are like 11 effective.
Yeah.
It's really, really fun to watch. But what's fascinating from a learning perspective, and like, I guess I'm kind of like you in this way where this is almost hands-on learning, is that you get to watch the model get stress tested in real time. So I get to see the boundaries, right? Like, I'm watching Ben Heath just auto muck ace 5 suited, and internally, like, my initial instinct is like, no, we're short, that's a good hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then, like, you just realize the money situation where it's like, oh, well, doubling doesn't do that much, and getting it in here as a 70-30 dog is a really, really bad outcome type of thing. Pocket sixes were just being dealt out like they were candy. Yeah. And every time they were just like facing jams.
Either hitting the muck or incorrectly calling off.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if anyone played sixes correct at all at this final table. So it's like,
I mean, it is kind of fun when like you call off sixes, beat ace king, and then you talk to your Euros on the rail and they're like, this is an error, but you won the hand.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this is over. I won't do that next time. But this worked out now.
Yeah, Jesse said in commentary.
Yeah.
By the way, your commentary was phenomenal.
Always is.
You're not going to get nearly enough credit for it because it's a 7-hour stream and people aren't paying close enough attention. But look, I've watched a bunch of the final tables, and this is no slight to anybody else, but I think specifically what you do, but even more so you paired with Lon, I think is just like such a pleasant experience for everybody. The real thing I wanted to highlight, though, is how incredibly generous you are with all of the players. And that's something that I think so many pros get wrong because they're so deep into the analysis and they want to be so right. You know what I mean? Like, I forget what final table I was watching the other day where I can't remember who was doing the commentary, but I was just like, you know, you might be correct, but like, I'm not that sure. Like, I'm not as sure as you are sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not as sure that you should be as confident as you are right now. And it comes off shitty to the players because, you know, they're out there and they're slinging it and they're playing for tons of money. And it's like showing a little bit of deference from the booth. Specifically, like, you were so glowing with Stam. Like, he's going to watch that back and he's just going to be like, guy, like, I feel so good about this experience. Even after he busted, because, like, there were a lot of questionable hands when he got down to, like, 6 blinds where he was openly saying, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, he was so hard on himself. And
yeah, because he studies.
He made a lot of good decisions.
Yeah.
Maybe you made a couple small mistakes or whatever along the way, but, like, that's really good. We all make a couple small mistakes.
Who are we speaking of right now, Matt?
David Stam. I think as commentators, it's easy to overemphasize those small errors because what else is our job? You know what I mean? Like, if you're in the booth, what else are you supposed to do other than educate the audience? But like, that ain't it. You know, Tony Romo's great because he's able to open up the game to the audience in a way where you start to see what he sees on the field. You start to see players moving in certain ways. He's able to predict how the play is going to play out and things of that nature. But never once is he taking shots at players, right? Never once is he saying like, oh, he missed this assignment. And, you know, that's not important. That's
not his job, really.
Right. And it's also only going to land with the people who are inside like, you know, are able to talk inside baseball, so to speak, right? So, like, you know, you could be hypercritical of a sixes call or a sixes fold or whatever the case may be. And, yeah, your peers that are also playing, like, big buy-ins are going to be like, yeah, Jesse knew that. He got that right. Or you can just show a little deference to the players and be like, you know, like, it's a really fucking tough spot.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of value in every aspect of life of saying, like, yeah, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot better than... Also, like... And... I don't mean this like it's the end of the world or anything, but I've noticed a trend with people who jump in the booth that aren't in the booth often.
Yep.
Where they kind of come in like with something to prove.
Yeah, they come in hot.
Yeah, they need to like show people how much they know via their...
Yeah.
And I tried to avoid that. I actively try to avoid that because of how it makes me feel.
Which is why I think I said you and Lon specifically matched together is such a good marriage because... Lon very much loves poker and very much is inquisitive. So if you come with that sort of energy and you're not like the professor who's just hammering home, because like, let's be clear, Lon's heyday as a commentator who was the authority, so to speak, is long gone. I mean, you know, we're not in 2003 anymore where all you really need to know are equities. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, this is a flip spot or whatever, right? So Lon, to me, is one of the most notable people that deserves kudos because he's done everything he can to adapt to the times. And he shows a lot of deference to the people that he has in the booth quite frequently by being inquisitive. And I think that that's like the best role that he can play as the color guy, right? Where he's basically calling the action. He's asking important questions. Sometimes he'll miss, right? Sometimes he'll ask a question that to the audience, it's like, come on, man, we all know that. But how it's handled is how the audience is going to respond. And I think that like you do such an excellent job of really speaking to that mid-entry point level where nothing is like obvious to anybody. You know what I mean? It's like, no, this is really tough. And here are all the reasons why I'm going to tell you why it's tough. And that I don't even have the answer in this particular moment. I think that's a really great way to approach these types of spots.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of that. working with Lon was really cool too, because obviously like we all grew up on his.
Yeah, he's the OG.
Yeah, and it was a really wonderful moment. I've done commentary maybe one or two other times with him, but it was really early on in my career, let's say, of doing commentary, and so I just didn't say a word. But this time I got to have this moment after I was like, every time we're in the booth together, it's like really special because you're Lon, And he's just like this guy who's really chill. So he's like, "Oh, thanks, man."
Yeah. It's almost like you're framing it like he's dying. It's like, I'm gonna cherish these when you're gone.
No, I mean he's just it's like when you're watching the World Series, the 2003 World Series of Poker in your buddy's basement. Whoa, poker's crazy. You don't think that you'll be like sitting in the booth with Lon at some point.
Yeah.
It's pretty
of
wild.
course. I remember the first time I got to do commentary with him. It was certainly unnerving because you realize that you are suddenly a part of a broadcast that mirrors the thing that you grew up on, right? Like it's obviously very different because we're doing a live stream and it's for many, many hours. But still, like we were all playing home games on Tuesday nights, watching back-to-back episodes of whatever final table was going to be airing that night. And it was going to be Lon and Norm. Yeah. And it was going to be a quick 30-minute, all the highlight hands. And I truly think that like poker needs that back badly. I think when we lost the ESPN deal, for whatever reason, the focus shifted towards real-time information, real-time streams and all that. And that stuff is fantastic, but content's moving back towards shorts. And I actually think like, there's been a lot of undertones throughout the community that like Lon and Norm are far past their time. And I think that people are just miscategorizing them. It's like they are not meant to be parts of 10 and 12 hour long streams. That's a really hard job to do if you're not an insider.
Absolutely. No, I've always thought of, I think of like Nick and Ollie as the live stream goats. Yeah. And then Norm and Lon, or you could say, Mike and Vince were kind of like the polished final product goats because they spoke to a much broader audience than anyone who plays poker, especially high stakes poker professionally, can really speak to.
Correct.
And that's the audience you're really trying to hit.
Right. And like, we've almost come full circle now where shorts are so important to any piece of content that you're putting out. Like it's such a clear like part of the funnel that those two would just be the fucking best. Like whether you're talking about 1 minute shorts or you're just talking about short form content where they're packaging like these shorter episodes or whatever. I mean, like, I almost feel bad for the current generation that they don't have a Tuesday night stream to watch on PokerGo's YouTube that is just a 30-minute breakdown of this final table with, Lon and Norm doing the voiceover of the biggest pots and, that ace king versus queen. Like, they can make that call iconic. Like, we just can't. Even if you're really good at that aspect, like Jeff Platt, I think, is one of the best when it comes to adding a layer of excitement to things that are happening at the table. I think he would have crushed that call. But it's also one of those things where it's like, well, there's going to be 7 hours of play afterwards. So like, how lost in the forest does that call get? Yeah. When it's all said and done. But if it's a part of a 20-minute segment, it's like that's the core of it, like that's your big peak moment is going to be this hand, and then everything that happens thereafter is just going to reach a culmination. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know I'm on a bit of a tangent about how we consume content nowadays, and maybe it's a little bit relevant with the Jared Jaffe everybody shut the fuck up messaging, but
do better, bro.
I didn't see that, but he said that the content has been bad lately.
Yeah,
that's kind of like how it works with content.
Yeah,
it's like there's just a lot of bad stuff and a little bit of good stuff, and you gotta sift through or maybe your algorithm does the sifting for you.
I think like it's so easy for us to, as like older statesmen, to just like we've been through these cycles so many times, right? Like the early 2000s, it was everybody doing whatever they could to get signed by an online operator. So everybody's posting wins and stroking each other off and like doing all that bullshit, and then that started to quell after Black Friday, and we all kind of fell deep into the hole of like, well, we better all get good at poker now. And so we all tried to do that. And then it started to like come back up again as Jay Carver hit the streets and became one of the most notable live streamers. Everybody wanted to replicate that. And there's a lot of guys in the game today that are built off of that Jason Somerville run it up type of core audience, like the Spraggies and the Lexes and the Fintons. There's this derivative of Jason's thumbprint on all of them. And that went swimmingly as Twitch boomed and some of it started to shift towards YouTube and we started to see this great spike. But what's going to obviously happen? There's going to be a dilution effect because everybody and their mom is going to get involved. And that's what happened. And then Nimi said, you know what? I see a horizontal play here. I'm going to do vlogs because YouTube, I think, is bigger than Twitch. And so he started creating vlogs. And then from there, we had the Brad Owens of the world and a handful of others. But guess what? Now there are fucking 150 vlogs. And, for a while, there was like 300 active poker podcasts. And so, yeah, like you're just going to go through these ups and downs. And if you're a guy like Jared, who's just kind of been like grinding along the whole way, where his sole focus was just to play poker and win, it probably gets like annoying, constantly seeing the rise and fall of other talent for no real notable reason when it comes to actually being able to sit in the chair and make good decisions. But yeah, I mean, I don't think poker's ever been in a more marketable state, so to speak.
Yeah. Also, look at the field sizes.
Right.
It's clearly going well, whether you like the way that
Whether
happens.
you like it or not.
Yeah. Like,
whether you want more or less people.
Yeah. It's been crazy. We've had insane numbers every single tournament.
I think we're going to break them again this year.
Yeah. Which, you could say that that's not correlated with the content that's put out, but I would imagine that it has to be to some extent.
It's really hard to ignore whenever you look at media outlets, when you look at operators and you see how much of their strategy is reaching out to these young up and coming content creators, right? And for the most part, they don't even come after the established ones because the cost is too high and they don't know what the return is, right? They're just dipping their toe in the water too. They have no idea if this thing's going to work. So they just go after like the young 22, 23-year-olds that are pretty hungry and will work cheap. And it's like, hey, throw a bunch of shit against the wall. Let's see what sticks. And maybe something good will come of this. You'll become a name and we'll become, one notch higher in acquiring new consumers. And I think like that's, pretty reasonable. All right, let's get out of here on a less than high note. It's so wild.
A low one.
I actually brought him up sometime last week. Something about Men the Master. I don't even remember it was probably something regarding cheating. And I just assumed this guy was like, in the commerce playing a fucking yellow chip game somewhere and scamming people for the rake or some shit. But no, it turns out he's out in the field in the Gladiator. He ran deep with
a couple times.
Yeah, apparently a couple times. No. It appears that with 24 left, there was a very controversial hand. And it looks as though we have some footage on it. So to set this up, there was a 3-table redraw in the WSOP Gladiator, so roughly 24 left. A guy went all in and effectively was shorted $4 million in chips, which I think at the time was something like four big blinds.
It's like one big blind.
No, it was like 4.
I know, I'm just fucking.
But basically what happens and what you'll see in this video is that he gets it all in with Jack 5 suited versus Ace King suited and Ace King suited. And at the end of it...
Wait, Men has the Jack 5 suited?
No. He has the Ace King
classic.
Suited. So the guy hits the 5.
Nice.
This is the first video, which you don't even have to play the first video if you don't want to. It doesn't matter. But you can play the second one. What you'll see is Men taking his chips back and effectively never paying the actual double. So
that's a hell of a move right there.
So yeah, I think it's.
Ace King.
So this is the first video.
I knew it was Ace King.
I knew it.
Here it comes, Jack 5 right here. 5. Oh, back door. 3, Jack 5. Let's go, man!
Wow. Bingo. What do you got to say to people, bro?
Bingo bango.
Bingo bango.
Tony Cocktail Table 92!
He's stroking out.
And my chips are just gone.
Well, okay, so cut to the second video. That's going to be the payoff.
He's grabbing chips right now.
Paul, you got to appreciate that one. You wanted someone to say that.
There's a nice amount of commotion. This is the perfect opportunity.
This guy's, I mean, it's not his fault, but like, bro, you got to make sure you get paid.
Yeah, go celebrate after you've gotten the correct amount of chips.
Right.
So, at what point do they realize he doesn't get paid?
So, after, shortly, I think 2 hands later, they redraw tables. And at that point, he realized he was shorted 4 million chips. And the floor basically says, there's nothing we can do.
That's insane.
Which, honestly, like, I've seen this happen before.
Wait, sorry to interrupt. There's no actual video evidence of him pulling the chips back, though, from what I saw, right?
Right here.
He's pulling them back.
Oh, that's Men. I thought Men was in the one scene.
No, you can mute this, Guapo.
Oh, wow.
So, you can keep letting it run. Just run it on mute. What you'll see is it pans away as he like goes to this guy or whatever, but now he comes back, and well, now we're back at the beginning.
Like he's grabbing some chips, but he also had the guy covered, you know? So like, who knows if that's from the pot that's supposed to be the other guy's or it's his own chips?
Right. So what you'll see here towards the end is he takes like the last 2 barrels.
This is terrifying because half the dealers are so new to this that you could just pull this off all the time. Like the players are basically running the table 45% of the time or something.
Yeah.
So if he pulls it back like confidently, like, oh, I've already paid out my share.
Correct.
They're just gonna go.
The Gladiator was interesting because there was a good 9 tables I dealt. I did everything but pitch the cards.
Oh, you dealt them?
Not really.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
He dealt them and was the dealer.
Wow.
He did both. On rollerblades.
You are a jack of many trades, sir.
Yeah, so it looks like this hand happened with 28 players remaining,
And
then
they redrew to
somebody
24.
busted to get it down to 27, either the next hand or a hand later.
Right.
And then they redrew, and once he redrew, he goes, I should have around 15 million in chips because I had 4.525. And he goes, I only have 11. So he alerted the floor manager. He went to check the cameras. Upon his return, he instructed players to rack up their chips and proceed to the redraw. Smith remained adamant that he'd been shorted. Jesus Christ.
Hold up. Men and the other ace king had more chips than the jack.
Correct.
5, right? Yeah, I know what he did. He pulled them back like, okay, we chopped.
Exactly.
And pulled them all back. Wow, that is... they don't call him the master for nothing.
Right. So Smith remained adamant that he'd been shorted, but play resumed with the matter unresolved. A few minutes later, tournament staff ruled that Foudy and Menwen needed to both surrender 1 million in chips to Smith. However, Smith remained insistent that this would still leave him short 2 million. And meanwhile, Foudy was adamant that he had paid the initial correct amount of 4.5 million.
Wait, is Stephen Foudy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Min was not available for...
The matter was escalated with tournament staff promising to take another look at the cameras. However, it was never fully resolved as Smith ended up busting 26 for 16,000. So yeah, it's like he only had 12 big blinds, or if he was paid correctly, he would only had like 12 or 13 big blinds. So obviously, like, they need to pause the clock in order to resolve this. Otherwise, this guy's going to fucking bust, which is exactly what happened.
Or he's going to double up and then be shorted.
Yeah. It sounds as though he alerted the floor with enough time, and I don't understand what their hesitation is with this few people left to get this right. Yeah. You know, it's like if there are 100 tables left and something like this happens, this table then suffers, right? And what ends up happening is the tournament plays out around you while they get it right at this table and no more hands are dealt. That's my personal, like if I was the floor person, that's what I would do. I would say, hey, hold the action here. We're going to have to go look at the cameras. We're going to have to get this one right. But also with like 100 tables left, this isn't going to be that impactful to the final outcome.
If there's a break soon, they should always take it.
Agreed.
I don't care how many tables are left. If there's a break soon,
totally agree with you there.
Start everything.
Yeah, start the break early. I agree with you there. So now in this instance, there's only 3 tables left. Like you have to pause the clock. You just have to pause the tournament and say like, okay, we have on video. There's somebody on the rail literally videoing that this guy had 4.5 million. So we can at least know for a fact that his stack should be roughly 15 million when it's all said and done, and he clearly is not.
Right, like the cameras should have all of this. This is what the cameras are for.
Exactly.
They're like, okay, the money came from this guy who paid it. The money did not come from the guy who pulled his chips back. That guy who didn't pull his chips back definitely owes him 4 big blinds.
Right.
So like,
Done. That's it. The wand is spoken.
How do you not just lose your shit in a situation like
he
this?
probably did.
I mean, to be fair,
Well, I mean, he did lose his shit immediately upon winning the hand. So he had no
No,
more
I
shit
mean
left
his
to get.
fucking mind. Like I would have thrown a fucking fit.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
have lost my fucking mind,
But
and
the thing
nobody
is-
would have played anything anywhere.
right? But the thing is like,
I don't give a fuck.
the thing is that he's a little bit
Nobody's
drunk.
doing anything.
Burn the horseshoe to the
He's
ground.
a little bit drunk. He didn't stay there to actually care enough to watch himself get paid. Like, there are a million reasons why there's user error here as well. You can't just say, like, how did he let this one slide? It's like, I don't know, man. The guy's fucking high-fiving the floor people on the sideline after spiking a 5.
kicks.
Right. It's just like, he doesn't seem to care all that much about the details.
Also, if table breaks and you don't figure out till you're at the next table, that's also a little bit on you.
Yeah.
More than a little bit, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like after the hand, you should kind of count and then be like, wait a minute, if I had 5 bigs and then I tripled plus the ante and the small.
I do think that rule is a little bit too stringent of like, if another hand is played, we can't retroactively fix this. I think that's kind of like nonsense.
There should be some discretion.
They've done stuff in the past where they have gone against certain rules for the integrity of the tournament.
We saw it at the final table of the 25K yesterday. Noel said 250,000 and then slid out 2.5 million, and they called the floor over because the blinds were 200K 400K, and they're like, he said 250,000 but put 2.5 out. What do we rule? And the floor person was just like, obviously his intention was 2.5 million,
right?
Like we rule that.
2012, the year I went deep in the main with like 40 left. Thank you. With like 40 left. Gail opens early position. Karaknai thinks he's 10 deep with the big blind, doesn't see her open. Says, I'm all in.
Wait, this was the 40 left? I thought this was 2 tables left.
No, well, maybe it was a little closer, but I think it was like a few.
Oh, I thought this was like 14 left or 15 left or something like that.
I think it was. No, he ended up. So basically, he went all in.
She had kings.
Mucked his hand.
Yeah.
And she had kings, and normally that's just ruled. Your cards are dead. You're all in.
Right.
But they're like, for the integrity of the tournament, we're just going to make him pay whatever the call was, I think, which doesn't. He should pay like a min rate, but it doesn't matter. Goes on to knock her out in 10th
place. Yeah.
And like they can't, look at the cameras for 5 minutes, and I don't know. I just feel like anytime.
I was very torn.
Yeah.
In that particular spot. Because
I mean, like by the book, the guy's like just fucked, right?
By the book, I think so.
Like you missed that someone opened, that's on you.
Right. I think like what really made me torn was that he mucked. Right?
Yeah.
Because like had he still had his hand, then it could be an angle. But like when he mucks.
Yeah, it's clearly not an angle because you're just screwing yourself over.
Right. So it's like if he still has his hands, like okay, then you just have to like
oh, joke all in, just kidding.
Right, you just have to run it with whatever equity you have here, and like that's unfortunate.
But now, the guy at the Hustler.
Yeah.
But now he has no equity because his cards are in the muck.
Right, and the thing is that I mean, it would be impossible in real time, I think, to be able to stop all of this. But like they'll let you retrieve your hand in those instances, and it was on RFID. Right, that hand was televised.
Yeah.
So
like,
they saw his whole cards.
Right, so like you could just like
get them.
Yeah, you could just like dig them out. Like we're all in and we're running it here, buddy. I know that you have X and X.
Yeah, that's really fucked up.
That hand wasn't on RFID.
It was
very sad.
Her table. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
What if it was?
She just showed that it was kings.
He said he had Ace Jack, which maybe he did.
Maybe. Yeah.
I interacted with him a good bit, and he seemed like a really nice, like honest.
I don't know, man. As it got down to like the final table bubble or whatever, he seemed like he really had a vendetta against her specifically.
Really? Okay.
I mean, maybe that was just a narrative that was kind of being cooked.
Yeah.
But it felt like he was like really going hard after Gael.
That's crazy though.
But it could have just been like, she was upset about that hand and like he took offense to it. I don't know, man.
She could have been giving him the stink eye for the next day and a half.
I mean, you know how brutal that is? Like that deep in the main event to have Kings hear the words all in and then like not actually have to play it out.
Yeah, no, it's fucked up.
It doesn't feel good.
Nah.
I mean, I guess you get to win 5 big blinds.
At the point.
No, not the point.
Future game, bro.
Future game is very, very important. So Jay Farber tweeted, Men Wen is one of the most blatant cheaters in poker.
This is so good.
And he receives no repercussions. He tried this with me in a pot at the Venetian back in the day and then asked me to step outside when I called him out on it. Naturally, he changed his tune when I said okay and I stood up. Yo, imagine little Men Wen.
Like a 30-year age difference there, isn't it?
Fucking 300-pound age or weight difference. Not even because Jay's big. Men's just that small.
You better hope it's not Shabbos because Jay doesn't roll on Shabbos.
Oh.
For those who haven't seen Jay, haven't watched the 2013 main event or haven't seen Jay before, he has possibly the largest arms to rest of body ratio I've ever seen.
Arms to body.
Yeah, like
he's huge.
He looks like he was put on this earth to be a nightclub bouncer.
Yeah, he does. and also, like, there's plenty of guys who look like that but can't fight.
Right.
He's like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like whatever the belt is right below black belt. I'm pretty sure he's like very, very good at grappling and fighting. So
he was ready to go outside.
Bingo! What do you gotta say to people, bro?
I don't know where that's coming.
Bingo bango.
Holy cocktail table stinking too!
It's always just playing in the headphones.
I know. It's like a shame.
This thing has a fucking mind of its
like
own.
a shame they can't hear what we hear.
Oh, they can't hear that?
No.
That's so sad.
No, I think that one went out.
Oh, that one went out? Okay.
Okay, that's better.
I'm glad you guys get to experience our pain. Barry Carter, obviously, the meme lord himself, who's going to win Twitter Personality of the Year. I'm calling it here first. He put out a tweet. He said, "It's funny. He's one of the biggest cheats in the game, and yet we still call him the master. Ali Izmirovic must be so jealous that his nickname is still Dick-Faced Dog Shagger." It's so good.
I mean,
it's so much better than I'm gonna steal your bitch.
Masterful angle, by the way. Like I would never be.
That's why he's the master.
To see that, like, oh, we chopped the side pot so I could get the dealer to think I'm pulling back just the side. Like, I would never, in the moment, like put that together. And do it. That
and
way.
honestly, like that's on the dealer for not pulling in the short stacks. Total thing. I had a similar angle ran against me by Young Man whenever we were fucking.
That shit was hilarious.
Bro, I'm telling you, it's like these guys are fucking like built out of like some sort of like posse or some shit. Like Men the Masters has been running like a cheating fucking workshop for the last 30 years, and like
he's got a textbook.
They have all the goddamn angles. So this happened at a meetup game at TCH. I was there to play 100, 200 no limit for a meetup game, and in the meantime, I was playing like 5-5, and a spot happened where like we got all in on the turn, and I had like the nuts of some sort. I can't remember, and I asked him once or twice. He declares twice, and the way that we had gotten all in, I had like barrels of chips. So I slid forward like a 40 stack, and I said all in. The dealer heard me say all in. Young Man for sure heard me say all in because I said once or twice, and he goes 2 times, baby. And I'm like, okay. So we run it. He misses both, and then he goes, how much? And the dealer starts to break down my stack. He goes, no. How much is that he slid forward? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, there's a language barrier now?
No, yeah, of course.
All the above.
Mind you, we're like $600 effective here in this 5-5 game, right? So it's like I put like, $200 out in red, and I have him way covered, but he has like 400 behind that. So he goes, no, I'm only paying that bet. And I'm like, the fuck you are? Because this guy fucking tortured me deep in the LAPC in like 2017 or whatever. Motherfucker was to my left on the bubble and was like, I mean, his stalling tactics were ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And he's obviously like one of the most annoying human beings to ever play poker with. He's no action whatsoever, which is even worse. And on top of it, he's just like running literally every fucking angle under the book. So like Savage is literally standing by our table, clocking him every fucking hand. They're arguing, all this other bullshit. Just tortured me the whole way through. I couldn't wait to fucking bust him. So now I'm like, no way, I'm getting this $400. Like, no fucking way. If it were somebody else, I would see where maybe there was some confusion. It's a meetup game. I don't care. Give him the benefit of the doubt.
$400 more dollars?
It's like nothing. It's literally fucking nothing. He's like, I'm not paying that. I go, the fuck you're not. And the dealer's like, you owe. And, it's TCH. It's not a fucking casino. So it's like they have their protocols, they have their floor people and everything else, but they're not emboldened by Nevada Gaming to like, you know, give you the benefit of the doubt of the player. So the floor guy comes over, he goes, "What happened?" And I'm like just yelling. I'm like, "This motherfucker's angling at me." He goes, "Pay." Pay or get out. So he ultimately ended up having to pay.
It probably wasn't his first experience with this person.
I'm sure it was not. Like, he's just notoriously a quote unquote bad actor. But yeah, man, it's nice at least that I shouldn't say it's nice because that's not fair. But what I'm getting at is it's good that they're so unsophisticated in the way that they cheat, that the only place they can really do this is small stakes. Right? Like, they need inexperienced dealers, they need inexperienced players, they need people who don't know the rules, they need floor people to drop the ball. A lot of things have to work in the favor for Men the Master to still be in fucking action. And, you know.
that guy's still in the tournament is suspect as hell.
Is he really?
I mean, no,
like, I don't think so.
Making it to that far in the tournament.
Oh, yeah. Somebody tweeted, if Men the Master's at your table, there's at least one cheater at your table. Which makes sense.
It's weird. You'd think the $300 buy-in would be the tournament that he siphons chips out to other tournaments, and yet that's the one that he's deep in.
Well,
maybe he does.
Well, they separate.
Yeah,
maybe they separate the chip stacks dependent upon buy-in, right? Like, so everything sub 1,000 has the same chip stack.
They definitely did something like in the past. They just did a ratio of buy-in to chips, right? It was like the 1Ks were 5,000 chips, and the 1,500 or 7,500.
But I think they have like 5 or 6 different chipsets now.
Okay, fair enough. If I was a tournament director, if there's any discrepancy between buy-in and how many chips you get in terms of the ratio, I would check the tournament, the chips in that tournament, because that's his favorite move.
Yeah.
That's his number one.
A timeless classic.
Yeah.
I mean, a ranking system.
Yo, he's taking this clip and he's definitely like adding it to the highlight
for sure
for the grandkids. Like, yo, look at this one. I got this is a good angle.
It's all going to be a part of the Men When Masterclass.
Yeah,
that will be out in a fucking.
That would be something. Masterclass.com sponsors Men the Master for a masterclass.
Bro, that would be such a funny. Like, you know how they do the 2-minute long like ad bit. Where it's like Daniel saying like, "You can't be all loosey-goosey eating a sandwich at the table." Like, imagine doing that entire 2-minute bit, and it's for Men When on like how to cheat small stakes.
If they're loosey-goosey at the table, you can take them.
It'd be so good, man.
Get him in here. I think his pay rate is something like a grilled cheese sandwich. And you guys could have him teach a course. And
oh man, that would be so fucking incredible.
It'd be like, yeah, you see when I take my chips back? That's where you got him good.
That's where we got him.
I'm gonna get offed by some kind of weird mafia that
all of us, man.
For these comments.
Just all of us for sure. I'm actually looking forward to it. I hope it's painless. All right. As always, Jesse, thank you. It's been a pleasure. We will be back tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Pacific as usual. Hopefully the tortoise is feeling a little bit better and we'll get him back in studio. But if not, Mental Health Matt will be here. We're going to have Strat Chat going on tomorrow, so we're going to be returning to In the Muck. Also, don't forget that Season 11 of Poker Out Loud is now out. First episode is live at S4Y.io. We get to play the progressive stand-up, or as Tom Dwan affectionately refers to it, have you heard of Progressive Squid? Lot of action in this season for sure. Features a lot of high stakes regs, so you guys will have a lot to learn about their thought process in basically a new game. It's pretty much a new game for everybody who's playing, with the exception of maybe me and CC. So stay tuned to that. Give us feedback. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you enjoy these guest commentary days. Hit us with a comment, a like, and a subscribe. We'll see you guys all tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Pacific.
Peace.